Hi everyone. We're at the point in the course now where we're going to shift and from strategies that are aimed essentially at describing the world, measurement, sampling, collecting data, to a set of ideas and strategies for probing cause and effect relationships or getting at causation. And this is a really important set of topics because in many ways, a fundamental purpose and value of research is understanding what causes many of the outcomes we care about in the world, both what causes bad things to happen, like crime or disease, or also what causes good things to happen, people living a healthy life or being happy or succeeding. So we're very interested in what causes things to happen in the world, and research can help shed light on that. And then we also are interested in ways to intervene or take action in the world to try to make things happen, to try to produce more good outcomes or to reduce bad outcomes. And so an understanding of that, an understanding of what causes things to happen, as well as the effectiveness of proposed solutions, is a fundamental kind of knowledge that research can help shed light on. And it's all of that is broadly the issue of causation. So in this week we're gonna talk about some of the fundamental concepts and review some of the complexities of or trying to figure out cause and effect relationships. And then in later weeks, we'll look at the particular types of studies that researchers use to probe cause and effect relationships. So here's an overview of the ideas for this week. We're going to talk about how correlation is not causation and understanding that difference. At one level, it's a simple point, but it gets complex, especially when faced with real world evidence. And then we're in the process, we're gonna look at various alternative explanations for a correlation. Variables can be related for a lot of reasons other than a presumed cause and effect relationship. We're going to look at the notion of causal mechanisms, which we touched on a bit when we thought about theories in research, but we're going to look at it more as an issue of causation in this week. And then we're going to introduce the ideas of self-selection and why that causes problems in terms of interpreting cause and effect, and the notion of endogeneity, which is an idea we'll explain, and then we'll take a look at the basics. One of the basic first steps for kind of getting at cause and effect, which is experimentation and exogeneity, or trying to make things happen. And I'll obviously explain that. But it turns out that intervening in the world and trying to make things happen is one of the key strategies for getting at cause and effect. And that'll set up a need for what's called the counterfactual definition of causation. And again, that'll be explained, and we'll then finally talk about some ethical issues. So there are a number of kind of abstract ideas here, but hopefully they'll make sense after we kind of put them to use, looking at some examples. And to get started on these ideas of causation and cause and effect, we're going to use an example, a new example. I've given you a few to work with on your own, but I think it always helps when learning these ideas to practice with many different examples. And also, the ideas really don't make as much sense unless you apply them to some real empirical study or some real causal claim that lets you kind of think about these ideas more concretely. So the example I'm going to use here is an interesting study that links commuting, how much time people spend commuting, and their political engagement, or how involved they are in various political issues and activities. So this is a interesting study was covered by NPR, the radio network, and so let me just play that for you, and we'll take it from there. Okay.
We all know about the partisan divide in this country, Democrats, Republicans, but there's another political divide. Part of the country is very engaged in the political process, and part is not.
Older Americans, richer Americans, and better educated Americans are more likely to be politically engaged. Now, researchers have found one more factor that seems to shape political engagement: the length of your commute. It comes to our attention as Morning Edition focuses on commuting.
NPR social science correspondent Shankar Vedantam has been looking into this. Hi, Shankar.
Good morning, Steve.
Okay, so why would commuting affect my interest in politics?
Well, there have been two different trends over the last several decades, Steve. Researchers have noted that fewer Americans are connecting in civic ways or in political ways.
All right.
Simultaneously, Americans have been commuting ever longer numbers of hours. So compared to 1990, Americans commuted about 42 million hours in that year.
Ugh.
Now it's upwards of 56 million hours per year.
Wow.
Now, a group of researchers is asking, is it possible there's a connection between those two trends? I spoke with Joshua Johnson. He's a PhD student at Stony Brook University, and along with Professor Benjamin Newman at the University of Connecticut and another graduate student, Patrick Lown, they found that the length of your commute seems to shape your political engagement.
The effect was pretty significant. We found that when people spent more time commuting, so an extra hour on their commute, that made them less likely to be engaged in politics.
Less likely to be involved. Shankar, is that just a factor of time, that people don't have time when they have long commutes to get involved in politics?
You know, for many years, political scientists thought that was the case, Steve, but it turns out that actually isn't the case, because the more time people spend at work, for example, is not connected with lower political engagement. So the amount of time you're involved with different activities does not necessarily affect political engagement. There's something about commuting in particular that seems to affect engagement. And the researchers are drawing here in this paper on earlier work by the behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman. He's found that commuting ranks among the most unpleasant parts of people's day. There's something uniquely stressful about commuting. And so when you get home after a hellacious day, you really have nothing to give to other people in terms of civic engagement, in terms of getting involved in your neighborhood politics. And so when you don't have the psychological resources to do it, you don't do it.
Are all people...
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. What that study talks about is essentially a correlation, or also known as association, between two variables. A correlation is any kind of empirical relationship between two variables, such that change in one variable is associated with change in another variable, or the attributes of one variable are associated with attributes of another variable. So here we have, let's say, commuting is X, right? And political participation is Y. And the data from the study, again, it's quite good. It comes from a large national survey, it's good sampling, good survey research methods, good careful measurement of both the commuting variable and the political participation variables. There's all of the stuff we talked about before in previous weeks related to how to do good research and do good data collection and measurement and sampling. Are factors, and it's a factor in any study. But this was well done, and the researchers found a correlation between commuting and political participation. Now, the question we're going to look at is it causal? Is this relationship causal? So there's a correlation between commuting and political participation. But the authors and commentators on the article are implying that X is causing Y, or at least that's the hypothesis, that's the interest. Is this commuting causing lower political participation? And is that, they mentioned the trends over time in both increased commuting and decreasing political participation. Is this decreasing political participation in the United States being caused by our increasing tendency to commute long distances from work? So that's the question we're going to look at, and look at a bit more carefully. Okay.